The explanation preferred by British intelligence and the fan base of the famous martyrs is that Adrian Belew was a congenital sophomore who used his warlord status in the notoriously violent rock industry as as a way of being a slob and a Tinkerbell when it came to catering to um, girls who wore dresses and high heels as they played drums and advocated for feminist Nazism. A congenital sophomore, in other words. The truth seems to me to be a little bit different. That's the front that's very plausible. And it has to do with the way that the Seinfeld show proceeds to rule the script and turn the setting, machine. The truth seems to be that they actually were behind what happened to me, but found out for administering an absolutely sacrilegious backstab of a person who loved them, was dedicated and came in sincerity and had some possibilities other than the ones that were administered to him. Needs a front story, oh, well, he was a crybaby, everybody hated him. We found that Brian Eno could have solved Gail Burst and Double D quick to cover up that they worked with the people who did it, advocated for the people who did it, and that lied about what happened to me. That's necessary for all of the shibboleths that are emitted from the bush of ghosts, so to speak. The insider group who know what all the illusions mean and can garble the words to confound the reality of having hoodwinked everybody. When it comes to Russia, you have to look at the blackmail for peace that was involved in the Cold War. Trump's name virtually signifies the blackmail for peace. Don Osho used to say, in the end, it's the weapon missile that counts. He was like, he played Todd Rundgren's Don't You Ever Forget Hiroshima. And he said, if I had one, I'd use one. You think I won't? You think I won't? And he went on Three Rivers Stadium. International terrorism will take the place of human rights. And Paul McCartney hired Lisa Miles to represent Yoko Ono's claim that they're just boys being boys. They're artists of the street. Where Russia comes in is Russia likes to put their dime on the big story. And I do have Russia to thank for putting me on to Lenin Sudini. Whether they meant to do that or not, or were in on it or not, is another question. But they certainly have less fear of freedom of speech in history than anybody else, sure, shy of um, marginalized persons in one of their favorite schools in Pittsburgh. But when you look at the way I see it, my conscience wouldn't be able to endure sending off hundreds of thousands of people to battle. I look at somebody said think globally and act locally. And I do see that in Two Virgins Pussy Ball. The I Am the Walrus story. What if everybody was like him? Like they have a conscription into the parochially lewdness of attack, prostitute, army, mafia, prostitution. From the Carousel Club. The lewd minds behind Kennedy's assassination, behind the Texas school belt, pretending to be very righteous. They always pretend to be so righteous. But when they angled to attack somebody, they attacked Ward and Marie, who were married 66 years, distinguished residents of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, in the Ozarks. That's what they targeted, while being oh so distinguished. They were beating up little boys and taking them to Mount Desert Island at Maxwell House. Bizarre mentality. Not necessarily anathema to our enemies. Now, I don't hold Russia in contradistinction to all that. They probably profit enough from it that they hedge their bets. Peter Gabriel apparently worked with Brian Eno in Moscow and tailoring the story for some niceties to make it look good for Hollywood. And to punish, they tortured me after torturing me while claiming that I was interfering with their storyline about having not really tortured me. The Have Not Really Tortured You show that was put on by John Lennon's unscrupulous fans. The scrupulous, unscrupulous fans of Lennon. They turned stars to water and tears to pus. Murdering Seraphim, yeah. Now, I realize that there's a hidden corpus of observers who look at the situation through the lens of thinking globally, acting locally. Like, what is this local focal point? What if we all observation it? This is Yoko Ono's Mysterian show, her magical mystery pornographic genocide story. She gets disgruntled to believe, like, one of their characters in California had a ferocious, it was like a cougar. And he freaked out when I tried to protect a beautiful, tender pussycat. This thing was just ripping apart. And this is the mindset of the Ted Nugent people that Amanda Harcourt brought in with Ringo Starr and so forth. Bob Dylan can tame them. Johnny Winter will bring out their good guy. Mick Jagger, of course, was all laughing hard with the Arnold Schwarzenegger show, who kidnapped and tortured me and battered my brains. And squeeze your head so hard your nose will pop off, one of them says. He crushed my head in a vise. It was all thought out and carefully shirked with abortion metaphors and so forth. So in Seattle, if you actually look at the circumstances, I mean, if you actually think locally, what you find is, I'm not putting this off on anybody, but the materialists on high who have put together this media apparatus, which isn't particular to any one particular gang. There was a Blue House and there was a rave scene and it got shot to hell. 6 kids perished. And the psychopath who shot them up wrote now, 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 now from the musical box. Got the guy aging, wants to be touched. I was with somebody who said some prophetic things about it before it happened. And then now comes from the idea of immediate gratification. Stuart Shepard, a friend of Sean Brooks, used to talk about me as immediate gratifier. Now. And Iran characterized America like you could put me in the cardboard representative seat of their America is a new nation who is all caught up in the now. They don't understand patience of ancient societies. And I have long believed that proper education was disturbingly withheld from me to create a golem. They used mind control and neuroplastic. And it should be noted before you go into making assumptions or refusing to ask questions that when I wrote Chess for Delgado, I did some research. That was back in 1976 or so. I mean, I was still visiting Tim Wolfe when I was working on that poem. So it was a long time ago. And I was, he said, barely a person. Just with Delgado, I did some research and discovered that Russia banned, the Soviet Union banned psychosurgery as a means of social control long before the United States did. We kicked out Jose Delgado eventually, but the Russians recognized what it meant immediately and said, no, that is a fact. And before you blame Putin for Watmaker, you should know that if there were Russians involved in it, it was against the laws of their society. It was not representative of their society. To the contrary. Reinhard Giesler protested AIDS immediately, to his internal credit. He was a Russian sensible man. I believe there's a lot to be said for Russia's alliance with China because the Chinese are very sensible people. They're investing. I don't know if you followed everything I watched today, but Professor Dugan said, in the framework of our understanding of social realism, Russia fits in nicely with all the countries of the West. It's important to understand that. Now, we may be dealing with a secret treaty about 2 virgins placebo-clogged to the AIDS attack. I'd be the first to admit that and would never deny it. And I don't think that anybody should come asking me for donations who doesn't feel the way I do about the prosecution of war criminals. But they have put me in a tourniquet of slow squeeze. I'm being crushed out by Parkinson's. It will not be that long before I'm having optical hallucinations and as moments of dementia. And they will use that this is what Adrian Ballou did. It's like they want to throw the postcard back. I mean, here's what we think of you, queer ball, after all those years. The purpose of this tape is partly to exonerate Russia, but it's a somewhat a hopeless thing because the media system that puts powerful individuals and strong personalities. I mean, Putin is the very funny, affable, decent, caring, sensible person that people who like him make him out to be. But what goes on in the background is a lot of unknowns. It's a reality show, so to speak. We don't know a lot of the things that go on behind the scenes, who people really are. And that's the argument that Yoko Ono made about me, was I had a hidden Dr. Hyde, Dr. Hyde in the closet, ha ha ha. I mean, the lucid people, they use Burstyn as an enemy within and so forth. Put a cadaverous arm on Bobby Kennedy's book by that title, The Enemy Within. Because it's from The Exorcist, The Enemy Within. And they can make up a justification of killing the enemy within who's immediately gratified. No. So whatever you do, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you did. I don't know what you believe. I don't know what you think. But don't try to get me to turn on my peers in something like the rave massacre in Seattle, the way that you got Carnegie Mellon to turn on me, the way you got my peers to turn on me, the way you got the scrupulously unscrupulous Beatle fans to turn on me. Don't expect me to do that. You could have gotten the rave to turn on me before I would turn on them. I don't think they deserved what happened. That was lawless. That was vigilante. That was a massacre. That was an insane and psychotic act. Not a UW Spinner Beanie brainstorm of great brilliance. It was idiotic, catastrophic, and cruel. Don't expect me to go along with Uvalde just because it has a King Crimson pun to it. You have all day. Don't expect me to go along with the massacre of Gaza just because a good many of those people would side against my pursuit of understanding adult cinema. I'm a person who doesn't think the way alt media does. I don't see what Nosferatu pulled with Egypt at the supernova rave the way other people do, because I remember the rave massacre in Seattle. And I understand what it meant to the movement, the social movement, that made a satire of JFK after he was gone. I understand what the lewd mind, the parochial sniveler, saying things like the persona is subjected to successive degradations of the X motive means. I can't extricate Russian intellectuals from Greg Carl if they were sympathetic and involved with him. It's not my precinct in the Ukraine. Russia isn't my precinct. Eno hot-wired me into this think globally, act locally so he could put on a play. Jimmy Crary isn't David Bowie, therefore we don't want him. And they manufactured this idea of excess and massacred the supernova rave. No. And I'll say this personally to Michael Johnson. I will gladly give you the floor. Roll out the red carpet, sing your praises in advance as a representative of your people in America, and listen to what you have to say about the dangers, the crime, the cruelty, the misuse, the mistake, the spirituality, the Christianity, the struggle of ethics involved in abortion. You can have the floor. Don't use it to justify genocide in Gaza. Don't use it to justify extermination and genocidal warfare. Please, don't do that. Say that people need to be taught about the force of creation, made to believe when they are young that they will have long lives, that they will be allowed to choose and able to choose, and that if they're careful, they will make good, abiding decisions of great distinction. Teach them that. Don't kidnap them, force them onto inhalants, and chase them into the house of someone like Dawn Oster to hear, well, how can I be free? How can I get help? Help, help. And told their face was just a mask. Because that's not education. That's hypnosis. That's crime. Unfortunately, it looks like it's coming from those people who make so much money off the church they don't have time to be Christians.